did a great job of telling you a little bit about my background, but one of the things that I'm really, really passionate about now is teaching practitioners and families how to use evidence-based practices. And so I think one of the things that's unique about this talk that I'm doing tonight is I didn't do the research to discover that video modeling was a really highly effective practice, but as a practitioner for so many years, working with kids on the autism spectrum, kids with ADHD, working with teachers and families, I have seen firsthand how incredibly powerful video modeling can be as a technique to be able to use. So I'm bringing it to you from a practitioner's perspective, not a researcher's perspective, hoping that I can give you guys some tools to be able to take back into your context and use with the kids and the families and the adults and the consumers that you support. So here's what I'm hoping to accomplish in our 90 minutes together this evening. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about evidence-based practices, a little bit about the Captain project that Lynn briefly described in the introduction, because there are some amazing resources on evidence-based practices that are free and accessible to you after you leave today. So some takeaways, some goodies for you guys to go back with to help continue to expand your learning. We're going to spend a lot of time on the one specific evidence-based practice of video modeling today, though. So my hope is that you guys leave with an understanding of what video modeling is, what kinds of kids, adults, and skills to be able to use video modeling to address, the types of video modeling that are an option, and how to best match those to the learners that you guys are working with on the skills that video modeling can help. And then I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to do some practice. Because I know sometimes, how many of you guys have ever been to a training or a workshop and like listened and thought it was a really good idea, and then you get back into your context, your classroom or at home, and you go, oh, wait a minute, how do I even get started? Right, does that happen every once in a while? Yeah, I've been there. So my hope tonight is to give you guys an opportunity to do a little bit of practice, to get set up and to kind of get primed to be able to implement a video model with a student or a consumer that you're working with. So let me start by telling you a little bit about Captain. Captain is the California Autism Professional Training and Information Network. It's a network of educators, regional center, clinical specialists and service coordinators, and family resource and support center staff from across the state. This group's been in existence now since 2010, and it's been our goal to help disseminate information about evidence-based practices to teachers and families and community providers so that you guys can realize the benefits of what the research has said is so effective. So what are these evidence-based practices? How many of you guys have heard that term being used a lot lately? Research-based practice, evidence-based practice. Really all that means is that these practices have some scientific research behind them that's been done really well and by multiple people, showing that these practices work to affect some kind of change with a specific population. Okay? So we use them because it's in policy that we should. The Individuals with Disability Education Act says you should use research-informed evidence-based practices. The Every Student Succeeds Act says you should use research-informed evidence-based practices. The Lanterman Disabilities Act says that practitioners and providers should be using research-based, evidence-based practices. But, show of hands, how many of you guys spend your weekends going through research journal articles, looking for what those research-based practices are? We've got our postdoc over here raises her hand, right? None of us do that. None of us do that. So how are we as teachers and providers and family members supposed to know what these practices are? Well, there's lots of reasons why we should know what they are and why we should use them. Number one is that, there's so much information out there. I recently Googled autism treatments and evidence-based autism treatments and came up with over 1 million results through Google. And I started kind of fishing through some of them, and some of them were things like dolphin therapy, right? Certain diets and nutritional things, and lots of different things that claimed not only cures, but amelioration of certain symptoms, to reversing all of the behaviors or certain behaviors. How does somebody really know what is true and valid, right? So the claims when it comes to autism are so far-ranging, and to be able to know what truly the research says and supports is really important, because who has time to try all of the different things that are out there? We want to narrow it down to those things that we know the research says can have an impact. So there's lots of things out there with no scientific evidence, and we don't have time for that, right? We got to get down to business and get down to helping kids and families, so we want to know what those practices are. So rather than going through on the weekend and looking at research journal articles, here's the good news. There is a professional group that was funded by the Office of Special Education to go through all those scientific journals, find all of the really good, well-done research studies, and they compiled them for us, okay? The National Professional Development Center on Autism Spectrum Disorders did that for us back in 2004. And based on their work, they found 27 targeted intervention strategies that have been studied multiple times and that have shown really positive results for individuals on the autism spectrum. So you don't have to fish for them, you don't have to hunt for them, you don't have to Google search them. They've been found. Not only have they been found, but each and every one of these practices has an online learning module that you can access for free, and printable resources and materials that explain to you how to actually implement the practice, kind of like a recipe for how to do it. So what Captain did is we said, well, the National Professional Development Centers identified all of these practices. Let's figure out how to disseminate them broadly across California. And so this group of regional center coordinators, educators, and family support staff from across the state, this is our goal, is to be able to get the information out into the hands of the end user, you guys, right? To be able to implement these practices effectively. So what you're seeing here is one of the tools that one of our amazing leaders created, Robin, sitting right over here, you can thank her later, to be able to help educators and practitioners and providers know what the practices are and figure out how to select them. So I'm going to walk you through how to use this tool so that you have it as a resource to take away, so that you can figure out more than just video modeling and who to use it with after you leave today. So let me walk you through this, this chart. On the left-hand side, what you see is a brief, very brief definition or description of each of the 27 evidence-based practices for individuals with autism. Across the top, you've got the different domains that we typically address skills and challenges with for individuals on the spectrum. Social, communication, behavior, joint attention, play, cognition, school readiness, academics, motor, adaptive skills, vocational skills, and mental health. And then right below that, those numbers are the age ranges. So ages 0 to 5. I know we have a group of folks working with the infant population. The 0 to 5 age group, the 6 to 14 age group, 15 to 22. And you'll notice that this chart doesn't go above the age of 22, because this project was funded by the Office of Special Education Programs. When does special education stop? 22. Age 22. So this particular resource stops there, but there are other resources very similar to this that have been done looking at the research in adults. And you can find those through the Captain website very easily, and I'm happy to show you at the end of the session where you can access those. Okay, so those are the age ranges. So what you see here is anything highlighted in that green kind of chartreusey color has been demonstrated for that particular domain to work and effectively support that area of need for that age group. Okay? So the 0 to 5 age group is the chartreusey green. Anything highlighted in yellow has been demonstrated to support the 6 to 14 in the domain across the top. And anything highlighted in blue has been shown to be effective for that older high school and transition age group. Make sense? Okay, so you're a parent and you're wanting to address some challenges and issues that you have in communication skills with your son or daughter. And they are 8 years old. So you go to communication, you go to that age group of 6 to 14, and look at all the options that you have. Lots of different practices that have been demonstrated through research to support that area of communication. So this is a way of being able to help you narrow down and identify, of the 27 practices, which ones might be an option. Okay? The next task you have is to learn a little bit more about each one. Because, for example, for communication, there's lots of options, aren't there? How do you know which one's best for your situation, for your child, for the context in which you're working in? That's where these resources come into play. So the Captain website, www.captain.ca.gov, is a resource, and we kind of call it the clearinghouse of evidence-based practices for the state of California. Notice it's at .ca.gov because the California Department of Education actually is supporting us in this website, this clearinghouse, to be able to disseminate information about evidence-based practices. So everything that you find on this website has been vetted, and you know that it is solid and backed and supported by research. So on the Captain website, on the very first page, there's these quick links. And these are links to those resources for learning more about these practices. On the AFIRM learning modules, there's a module on how to select evidence-based practices. There's also a module on each of the 27 on that chart. And you can earn CEUs for doing them, professional development hours. And any board-certified behavior analysts in here? No? Tell your friends, though, type 2 CEUs for taking these. Okay? So the modules themselves are really user-friendly, super easy to access. There's a pre and a post test. There's printable resources and materials. All you have to do to be able to access these is establish a login. And the reason you have to do that is because the Office of Special Education Programs is funding this, and they want to know how many people are using them, and from where, and what your role is. Are you a family member? Are you a professional, speech therapist, a teacher? So they gather some basic demographic information, and once you do that and establish a login, it's all yours and it's there for free. So that's one of your takeaways today, is to go check out the Captain website, get logged into the AFIRM modules, because that's going to be an ongoing resource for your professional development from this point forward. All right, so video modeling. All right, before I get into what it is and how to do it, how many of you in the last month have gone onto YouTube because you need to figure out how to do something? Raise your hands. All right, call out some of the things that you went on YouTube to find out how to do. Just call them out. Knitting stitches. Okay, what else? Car repair. Fix the grass, remove a stain. Ooh, that's a good one. I went on to figure out how to make biscuits just last weekend. Okay. We use video modeling. It is such a part of our culture, the way we learn, the way we access information. Video modeling is just looking for a video that walks you through a sequence of steps of how to do something. And YouTube is loaded with video models. Okay? I was traveling with a colleague of mine a couple years ago, and we rented a car, and they gave us a Prius. We got in the car, and I'm trying to figure out how to start the car. I'm like, there's no key, how do I start the car? She goes, hold on just a second. She looks it up on YouTube. She shows it to me. Boom, there it was, at your fingertips. Heck of a lot easier than trying to find the manual and pulling it out and reading it, right? So this is an everyday part of how we learn and how we access information. And the good news is it's also incredibly effective for individuals with learning differences, autism, ADHD, to be able to use. So video modeling is a mode of teaching where you use videos to display a model of the targeted skill or behavior. That's all it is. And if you look on your chart that you just learned how to use, you can see that this is an evidence-based practice that works across all the age groups for different skill domains and across a lot of the different skill and domain areas that you might want to address with an individual with disabilities. So this is one you get a lot of bang for your buck with if you learn how to do it and you become proficient at it. So why use video modeling? Well, first off, it's really easy. Especially with, how many of you guys have a smartphone, right? How many of you take videos on your smartphone? You've got pretty much everything you need right there. It's easy to do this. It's fun. It's kind of fun to develop them and to use them, but it's really fun for the students, and you're gonna see some proof of that as I go through and show you some of the video demonstrations today. And then, of course, ultimately, it works. So it's effective, and that's a really good reason to use video modeling. So I'm going to start by letting Nate show you the impacts and effects of video modeling. Because if he can't sell you on it and convince you how amazing this technique is, then no matter what I say is going to convince you. So let me tell you a little bit about Nate. When we worked with Nate through the Captain Project, he was a middle schooler, 8th grade, getting ready to transition into high school. And Nate spent a portion of his day, a pretty good portion of his day, in a special day type of a classroom for students with disabilities. But Nate's a pretty social guy, really likes to interact with people, and is really interested in technology and really interested in you know, anything having to do with equipment and things like that. Always has been since he was a little guy. So one of Nate's goals on his IEP was to improve his communication skills and to be able to have a two-way conversation with another person for a number of exchanges. He also wanted desperately to be an office tech in the school office for an elective credit. One of the requirements of being an office tech is to answer the phone and take a message and convey that message to whoever it's for. So communication and kind of a vocational area merged together in this area of need for Nate that the teachers started working with him on to be able to answer the phone, take a message, and convey that message to the appropriate person. Now you guys know, when you pick up the phone, there's a couple of different scenarios that could happen. You could answer the phone, they ask for a person and the person's there. Or you could pick up the phone, they ask for the person and the person's not there, and you have to take a message. Okay, so different scenarios based on the context, he had to learn to discriminate. So his amazing educational team knew that Nate had responded really well historically to visual supports. How many of you guys are familiar with visual supports as a strategy, right? Lots of different ways to use visual supports. So they put some things in place for him, some different visual supports that they thought, based on his learning history and his learning preferences, would work really well. One of them was a sequence of the steps for answering the phone that they posted right above the phone. And it had, you know, step 1, step 2, till that point where there was this decision tree, person's there, person's not there, and then it had the steps for those, right, kind of mapped out sequentially. That was one of the visual supports. Another visual support that they used for Nate was a note-taking template for when he needed to take a message that was designed for him with larger spaces and different visual cues and prompts so that he would know what to do, like a little clock face next to what time did they call, okay? So they used these for several weeks, and Nate was super motivated. I mean, anything having to do with equipment, technology, he knew that this was his ticket into office tech, super motivated, but just not quite getting there. So the first video I have to show you is Nate's baseline, When I say that, they've been working with Nate for several weeks now, trying to teach him to answer the phone using visual supports. Just that one practice, evidence-based practice of visual supports like I just described to you. So let's see where Nate's at after a few weeks of using this particular evidence-based practice.
Miss Blissman's class, students speaking. This is Hank. How can I help you? Ruth Ann's not here right now. May I take a message, please? Make sure the person comes to the phone. Remember, Taryn, make sure the person comes to the phone.
What are they asking?
Yeah, set the phone down next to the receiver quietly.
Did they ask for Ruth Ann?
They didn't ask for Ruth Ann. Set it down
Take
quietly.
a message. Ruth
May I
Ann's
take a
not
message,
here.
please? Set it down quietly.
Nate.
Set it down quietly. Hang up.
No, you're taking a message.
I'm taking a message. Ruth Ann is not. Can I take a message, please? What's your name, please? Sam. What is the message? The birthday cake is wrapped.
Just so you know, the person that's on the other end of the phone was the vice principal who was in on this, helping him learn.
Eight seven seven 877 877 877 777. Fill in the bottom row after hanging up. And on the message say, I will give Ruth Ann the message. Said, hang up the phone.
So what do you think? He's precious. I've known him since he was this big, and he's this big now, right? How's he doing with answering the phone? Did you know there's some pieces there, right? Is he accessing the visual supports? Seems like he's kind of coming in and out of accessing them, right? You saw him kind of get back on track a couple times referencing it. But there's still some things that are kind of missing, right? So the visual supports was a great start. It did help. It helped him start to get some of the steps, and it helped him to be able to structure it a little bit. But what does it seem like he's kind of missing still? Just a couple things. Yeah, that social exchange, like the other person is actually waiting on the other end of the phone while all this is going on. What else? Yeah, he's confusion about the steps in the process, right? Not all the pieces are coming together for him fluidly, okay? So the team got together, and part of the process with Captain is that we go in and we provide coaching to the implementers. And we went in and saw that they were doing a really nice job with implementing visual supports, but Nate's data on progress on this goal was pretty minimal, pretty slow still. And he kind of had plateaued a couple, 2-3 weeks back. So we needed to do something to get that learning accelerated and moving again. So we went back to the chart and said, okay, in addition to visual supports, what's another evidence-based practice that we might consider? And one of the paraeducators on the team said, well, we should try video modeling. That sounds awesome. The teacher was super intimidated. Video modeling, oh, I don't know how to do videos. Took a little bit of convincing to say, come on, you got this, we can do this. You got a team here, let's try it. So the teacher and the paraeducator that day after school, after our team meeting, took the videos, okay? And it was the paraeducator filming the teacher on her smartphone, doing the scenario where the person's there and doing the scenario where the person's not there, okay? Took them a couple takes to get it kind of just right, but it wasn't an immense amount of time. I think the total time invested was about 20 minutes till they got the videos. So, next day, Nate came in the morning and they showed him the videos. Right at lunchtime, Nate sat down, they showed him the videos. And then the phone rang. Okay, so second video I'm going to show you is Nate watching the videos for the first time that morning. Because I want you to see his level of engagement. I want you to see how much he's attending to and you know, kind of just his whole affect about this video modeling thing.
Displacements class, student speaking. Hold on a second. No, Pam is not here. Can I take a message? What's your name, please? What is the message?
When they get off, I'll put
Your phone number, please? Okay, thank you. I will give Pam the message.
So you paying attention to that video? Now, they were really small. They could have been bigger because you saw him struggling trying to see what was going on. A little bit of that was allergies, but definitely could have been bigger. But he was checking those out. He was into them, wasn't he? Paying attention, you know, looking at the subtleties. Did he look like it was painful for him? Did he look like he was enjoying it? We saw laughing, right? He was into it for sure. So that was his first view, and again, he got to watch him again at lunchtime. Okay, so 2 views of the video. And this is after lunch.
Displacements class, student speaking. What's your name, please? Jean. No. What is the message?
Where did Judy hide all the pencils? In the vase.
What is the message?
Why does Judy not want
Return my call. Return my call. Return my call. Your phone number, please.
Then I'll get another?
864 54 7 54
So Judy was
86.
jealous about her brother.
Okay, thank you. I will give Leanne the message.
She didn't say a word about.
He's not done yet, though. He looks at the clock. He writes the time down.
She's not even happy.
Now you can clap for Nate. Right? Every time people watch this, they want to cheer for him because it put the pieces together. He was successful. So video modeling was the next layer. The visual supports he was still using, we didn't abandon those. The next layer of EBP to add on to be able to help him kind of see the sequence and see how it all went together. Okay? Now, some of that social stuff still needs some work there, right? A little bit. But he was emulating the tone of voice and the pleasantness in the video, you know, and so the prosody and the language that he was using was a little bit different as a result of the script or the model that he saw. But he definitely put some pieces together. And you guys, that's 2 views. That's not a lot of time spent, right? 20 minutes to develop it, twice to watch it. We're talking about maybe a total of 40 minutes of actually preparing and implementing the intervention to get that kind of result. Now, I can't sit here and promise you you're going to have those kind of results with everyone you try video modeling with, but I've seen some really amazing things with this approach, putting pieces together for different individuals across the age ranges. So I want to talk to you now a little bit about the different types of video modeling, because there's different types and different ways to use it, and you have to kind of know what's going to be the best match for the learner that you're implementing it with. The first type is called basic video modeling. So this is, in essence, where you're recording someone other than the actual learner, other than the target student, engaging in whatever the behavior is. And sometimes they're short, sometimes they're longer. Part of that is going to depend on your learner. But it's demonstrating or modeling the skill that you want the learner to do. So the video I have here to show you is actually two of the staff from one of our preschool programs in the Captain Project. And they were working on teaching the little guy, and you'll see him running around over here, kind of checking out what they were doing. They were teaching him how to participate in soccer, okay? This is a goal because he loves balls, he loves soccer. He goes out to recess with all the other preschoolers, and he's chasing and running around with them. But this is what he does anytime he gets inside of the soccer ball, picks it up and runs with it. Right? All the other little kids are like, hey, what are you doing? You're messing up our game. So they were like, okay, we gotta teach him how to do something other than picking up the ball and running with it. So the very first video model that they showed him was just how to receive a pass and kick it into the goal. So not the whole soccer game, just receiving a pass, kicking it into the goal. Two simple little steps, okay? So this is basic video modeling because it's from a third-person perspective and it's someone other than the student. So let me show you this example.
Play soccer. Okay. I'm going to kick it to you. You kick it to the goal. To the goal. Are you ready? I'm ready. Kick it here.
That was it. Okay, basic video modeling. And he was watching them, right? But after seeing it on the video a couple of times and then getting the opportunity to do it, he started to pick up the skill. So then they added on. Okay, they added on, running across the field, stopping, waiting for the pass, kicking into the goal. And eventually he was able to participate more fully, but that was just step one. Okay, basic video modeling, pretty straightforward. Okay. Video self-modeling is the next type that I want to talk to you about. And this is where you're actually recording the student, the learner, engaging in whatever the skill or targeted behavior is. Now, why might this be kind of tricky? Well, yeah, how do you get them to do the skill if they can't do it? So this is really good for and used whenever there's not necessarily an acquisition issue, but a performance issue. And what I mean by that is they know how to do it, they're just not always doing it at the right time. Or there needs to be a little bit of fine tuning, and every once in a while you can catch them doing it really, really well. So that's what you're trying to do, is capture an example of them doing the it, whatever it is, really, really well, so they can see themselves performing the skill or behavior. Now, one thing about this is usually it takes a lot of editing. Sometimes you get a little clip and you have to cut it out and then restart it, and that's what you're going to see on this example. And sometimes it takes running a lot of different days until you get that just right clip. But when you get that magic moment and you show it to them, it's like, oh, I can do that. So capturing him doing each of the steps. I had another one that for whatever reason, I couldn't get it to be compatible on this computer, of a teenager learning how to appropriately greet peers. And it took several takes to get him doing it just right, but finally getting him doing an appropriate greeting and showing it to him. In fact, one of the issues was that he would mumble a lot. So somebody would say, hey, Josh, how you doing? I'm doing all right. And it wasn't understandable. So a lot of his peers would be like, okay, I'm not sure what he said, and kind of disengage. But we caught him one time actually with his head up, using clear words, making eye contact, saying, "I'm doing good, how you doing?" Boom, that was the magic sauce right there. And he looked at it and he goes, "Oh." And then he saw a video, one of the edited cuts of him mumbling, and he goes, "I don't do that." And the teacher goes, "Well, look again, that's you doing the mumbling. That's what we've been telling you about." He's like, "Oh." He had no concept of what it meant when the teachers would say, "Josh, you gotta quit mumbling." What is mumbling? So that taught him how to discriminate between mumbling and an appropriate, well-articulated, volume and eye contact, all of those pragmatic things, by being able to see an example and a non-example. Usually in video modeling, especially with video self-modeling, you want it to be a demonstration of the appropriate behavior, and them demonstrating it so that they can see they can do it. All right, the next type, don't be intimidated by this. It's called point of view video modeling, okay? And this is, I think, what the GoPros were actually invented for. That's basically what it is. Helmet cam, do you remember that, football fans, right? They would put the helmet on, you would see from the quarterback's perspective what was going on, GoPro. So it's from the person's perspective what it looks like to actually engage in the skill, okay? So the example that I'm going to show you is hand washing. And you'll see that it's kind of taken from that angle of what it would look like if you were the one doing the hand washing. The other thing about this example is it's narrated. And we'll talk about that afterwards. But I want you to be thinking about when might it be helpful to do narration and when might it actually create a little bit of an issue or a challenge, okay? So you see how it's that first person perspective from the perspective of the actual person performing or engaging in the skill. What do you think the issue or challenge might be in using narration? She was walking through the step. What do you think?
My son would say every
Yep.
single step as he
Yep. Yep.
and in the exact same
Yep.
tonation.
Yep. And so how do you get them to not do the narration when they're doing the task if they think that's part of the process? So knowing your kiddo, knowing your student, knowing your learner, will tell you whether or not narration is going to be helpful or not helpful. The good news about it is if I were working with a student to wash their hands and narration was going to create an issue like that, I could just turn the volume off, right? So, no big deal. But yeah, so you have to really be thoughtful about words in the video model because a lot of our kids will then pick up exactly what it is that they see. Now, one of the ways around that is making multiple videos. So you have variation in the videos that they're seeing so that they don't get rigid and kind of rote with how things are being demonstrated to them. So having multiple examples for them to be able to watch and to model. This particular type of video modeling is fantastic if you're working with a kiddo who has a really difficult time kind of taking that perspective, right? And observing and then imitating what they see. So for a lot of our younger kiddos, the age group that you guys are working with, that first person perspective might be golden. I had a teacher that I was working with the really little guys, 2s and 3s, and she did getting off the school bus and walking into the classroom and greeting the peers and the teachers through that type of video modeling. And then she did it for the toys in the play area, like all the different things that you can do with the farmhouse, all the different things you could do with the blocks and the cars, and showed the kids all of these different examples in that first person perspective. She was blown away, not only by them learning kind of the sequence of steps, but also the language that they were using and trying to use. Even some of her pretty pre-verbal kids that were just at that utterance level, you could hear some of the words and some of the animal sounds after they watched it on the video. So this can be a really great way of being able to adapt video modeling for that age group or learners who may have a difficult time with taking that perspective. Yeah, question? No, that's the thing, is by watching it and then having an opportunity to do it, you start to see the skill emerge. Now, it may not be a standalone evidence-based practice. Like I said with Nate, it was a combination of the visual supports and the video modeling, and of course, for some students, you might have to add in some additional positive reinforcement. If you do this, then this happens next. You might have to add in some additional external prompting and prompt fading. So it may be a combination of different evidence-based practices that you layer to be able to get the learning to happen. But for a lot of learners, just having that opportunity to observe it and then do it can be really powerful. And then the last type of video modeling is called video prompting. And in this type of video modeling, basically what you're doing is you're taking the skill and you're breaking it down, and you're using it as part of your teaching. So you're showing it and then giving them an opportunity to do it, and then showing some more of it and giving them an opportunity to do it. Okay, so it's breaking it down and allowing them to practice the steps. So that app that was being used on the iPod is called the First Then Schedule app. And in the packet, which I'll show you how to use in just a minute, there's some suggested applications that make doing some of this a bit easier. So it's a short little video clip, narrated. She chose to narrate. And the student actually learns to progress to the next step after they complete it. So Ethan learned how to make mashed potatoes using video modeling, using that app. He learned how to do office filing. He learned how to do paper shredding. I think there was like 15 different skills that once he learned how to actually use the app and was responding so well to video modeling that they were able to help him with. And then if he forgot a step or got stuck, rather than having to go to a person to try to figure out what needed to happen, he could just pull out his app and go back and go, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot to do this step. Okay, so it promoted a lot of independence. Now, there are a lot of commercially available resources out there for video modeling. And Model Me Kids is one example. They've been around for a long time. They're purchasable and relatively inexpensive, and there's lots of different variations for young kids, old kids. Model Me Kids for going to a birthday party. Model Me Kids for the first day of school. I mean, they have lots of different options and variations. And they're a great resource. And they have, in the Model Me Kids series, they have it to where you can use it for video prompting, so it'll pause, it'll give an explanation, it'll allow for role modeling and practicing, and then it picks back up again. So it's a great resource. And then also there's the FriendMaker app, and this was actually developed by our colleagues at UCLA through the Peers Social Skills program. Peers is one of the only research-based curriculum for teaching social skills to individuals with autism. And they've developed this series of video models for a lot of the skills that are part of that curriculum, and it's a great resource as well. I don't want to discourage you from using the pre-made, commercially available, but also if you go on YouTube, you're going to find a lot of different great examples. The challenge is, and one of the things you want to be thinking about is the learner that you're going to be using this with able to take a generic model of, say, for example, a playground that isn't their playground and see how it relates to their lives. Sometimes it's better to use the self-made basic video model on their playground while they're learning, okay, while they're actually picking up the skills and learning the basics of how to do it. So a lot of it comes down when you're selecting the type of video model, whether to use pre-made or make your own, to really knowing who your student and your child is and what's going to potentially work for them. Okay, so I've run you through the different types of video modeling. So now, how do you actually do it? Well, you guys have a packet in front of you, and this actually was taken directly from the AFIRM learning modules that I shared with you earlier. This is called their brief packet. And so I wanted to give you a whole example so you could see the wealth of resources that are available on each and every one of those evidence-based practices. But one of the things that's awesome about the AFIRM modules is it has these step-by-step implementation checklists. So it walks you through how do you plan or prepare for this practice, how do you implement it, and how do you monitor whether or not it's actually working, okay? So it's kind of like the recipe for how to do it. Takes you through the sequence of steps, okay? So just really quickly, you'll also see in the packet that you have a equipment checklist and sort of an example of the different equipment that you might consider using, some of the different applications that are available. And this is something that can help you to be able to plan for your implementation of video modeling. What do you have access to? What do you know how to use? And what do you think might work for the student? So what are you going to use to record it? What are you going to use to help the student view it? And if you need to do any editing, how are you going to do the editing? Those are the 3 things to be thinking about. So step 1 is to think about and identify the skill that you want to teach to the student or the child that you have in mind. Okay? What exactly is the skill that you think video modeling might help them to be able to learn or perform better? And then you have to break it down. Okay? Many of you are probably familiar with this term, task analysis. How many of you guys have heard this term before? Yeah, right? In any teacher credentialing program, they drill this one into you, right? Get lots of practice task analyzing. But it's an important step in video modeling because it helps you to think about what are all of the different parts and pieces of this skill that I need to capture really well on the video. And it helps you to think about, am I going to do the whole thing like with the soccer example, or are we just going to take a couple of the steps and work on those first? So task analyzing is breaking the skill down into the sequential steps, and then thinking about or figuring out which ones you're going to be able to capture on video. Next thing you need to think about and decide is there going to be any words? Do you need a script? Okay? Or are you going to use narration? So with each step, what words are going to go there? Okay? What are they going to say, and how are they going to be said? So creating the script, and then you record the video. And lots of different options and ways of being able to do that now. Any 10-year-old you know probably knows how to use Video Editor really well and could probably help you with that part if you're not as fluent with the editing part of video. And then the next step is to use it as an intervention. And so these are some of the guidelines for using it as an intervention. The first thing is it can be shown in various settings. And really we know that we want to mix it up a little bit, right? We don't always want to have the video shown at the exact same time every day on the exact same computer. Ideally, showing frequency is 1 to 2 times daily while you're starting out, so they're getting exposure to it. But less frequently, you can still see some benefits. If doing video prompting, ask the student to display the skill as soon as possible after viewing the video, especially when you're first teaching them the skill or how to use the video model. And always reinforce the student for watching the video, because that's part of this, right? They paid attention, they sat, they looked at it, they cooperated with the actual viewing of the video. I rarely see that as being a problem, because anything on a screen, for most kids, it's like, whoosh, I'm right there and I'm paying attention like you saw with Nate. And then finally, of course, the whole goal is that this is helping. How do you know if it's helping? Well, you gotta monitor the student's response to the teaching practice. And so that's gonna mean looking at their progress on the skill or the behavior that you're working on. And there's lots of different ways to do it, and the packet walks you through a variety of different ways of being able to monitor student progress and collect data. One of the things that I found to be most helpful, when you have that task analysis of steps and they view the video, then write down or record whether or not they did that step independently or whether they needed some additional prompting or help in the real context, right? So you're able to monitor the level of prompting to see if you're able to decrease or eliminate the prompting over a sequence of sessions. And then think about this too, that actually viewing the video is not something you want to have them be doing indefinitely. It's used for a period of time, and then you want to be able to eliminate the need for the video so that they can perform the skill more independently. So think about the frequency of viewing, think about backing off of it to see if they can still perform the skill. Think about using it as part of an error correction instead of maybe part of the teaching after you feel like they've acquired the skill.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was created in 1998 with a promise to find cures for neurodevelopmental disorders. Every day, our physicians and researchers come closer to fulfilling that promise. Their groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other brain disorders are helping children achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.